What is going on, Coaching Collective? Welcome back to call number 15. Yes, call number 15. Today we are going to do a supplement mastermind, master overview, not mastermind. We're going to go over the foundational and my foundational vitamins, minerals, and supplements to be using for clients and their overall health and well-being. As always, everything I say is not Bible. This list is definitely not all inclusive. And to be honest, I do encourage you guys on this call to chime in if you're like, hey, what about this? Because I can almost guarantee you that I missed some that you would be like, well, these are super crucial. That's the whole point of this, right? So everything I'm doing is not all inclusive. And it's just important to remember that. Let's go ahead and dive on in. Can everybody see my screen? Thumbs up if you can see my screen. Cool. Supplement master overview. Honestly, I will, again, I encourage you guys to ask questions and stuff about this if you need them. Shouldn't be too long of a call tonight. So what exactly are supplements? And this is our own definition. This isn't the actual definition of supplements, but it's something that completes or enhances something else when added to it. Does that make sense? That one is the actual definition of a supplement. Something that completes or enhances something else when added to it. So if you look at multiple things from that stance, supplements is a very, very, very vague categorization of something. All right. So something to fill a gap we are unable to fill elsewhere. Something that adds an extra element or amount to. So this can go in terms of health, performance, nootropics that we did that call on earlier. Those are all considered supplements in some way, shape, or form. A vitamin, technically a supplement. A mineral, technically a supplement. But we're going to break those up for this call. So let's start with the foundation. We're going to start with vitamins. So I put vitamin D and vitamin K2 kind of on the same slide for a reason, because they kind of are connected to each other in a way. So vitamin D, and again, dosage is always going to be dependent for the client, their needs, everything in between. Roughly, we're going to see supplementation anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000 IUs a day. So we have a hard time absorbing vitamin D from the sun, from food and sun exposure is at an all-time low in society. We, as human beings, get the least amount of sun we've ever gotten before in history. And I'll say it, I believe that a vitamin D deficiency and a lack of sunlight is one of the #1 drivers of mental health issues or depressions that are going on, is people not getting enough sunlight. Because in this society, we are constantly working and having these tech advances. So we're keeping people inside, working on computers, artificial lights the entire time. We talked about blue light glasses in last week's call, and it's just completely disrupting our natural production of everything. Vitamin D is awesome. It's probably one of my favorite vitamins. It can benefit fat oxidation in the body. It improves blood pressure. It supports natural serotonin production. It supports natural testosterone production, and it even supports your immune system. So in my opinion, vitamin D is one of my absolute foundational vitamins that I pretty much will start every single client on. Any client starts with me, I'm usually going to have them adding in vitamin D in some way, shape, or form, just because I freaking love it. Now, moving forward from there to vitamin K2, dosage here can vary a little bit wider than the ranges that I set for it, 100 to 300 micrograms, but that's typically where I'll hold it in, is 100 micrograms. I like to pair this one together with D because vitamin D actually depletes vitamin K2. And that's a good nugget for you guys. And they also sell, I probably should have added pictures, this would have been easier, but they sell a vitamin D and K2 combined supplement. They sell this supplement together in one pill. So your clients can do a one-stop shop here. So what is vitamin K? Vitamin K2 helps to ensure that calcium transported by the vitamin D is absorbed by your bones where it's needed, rather than just accumulating in deposits in your arteries. So dude, K2 and vitamin D, they're like a power pack combo for calcium distribution. K2 supports bone density because of that. And it also activates a protein in your blood vessels called matrix gal protein, or MGP, which removes calcium from the lining of blood vessels. So it kind of keeps things clear. Does that make sense? It's freaking awesome supplement. So If you're going to dose vitamin D, probably would recommend dosing vitamin K2 with it as well. Any questions on those two? You guys want me to give you a second so you can finish writing whatever you're going to write down? See some of you guys write still. And then, so just to talk on this while everybody finishes writing down, like vitamin D levels in blood work, if it's super high, if that's the only thing high, I'm not too worried about it. If calcium gets high, calcium is pretty hard on the kidneys when it's high. So we'll start looking at vitamin D supplementation and other things like that as well when we're looking at that. But we'll get into calcium here a little bit later. Okay, moving on. Vitamins part 2. Again, 2 of my absolute favorite supplements or vitamins, fish oils or omegas. I personally think that fish oils are extremely crucial for our diet because like we literally don't produce them. Like there's absolutely no way for you to get omegas or EPA DHA without actual supplementation or consumption from your diet. The kicker rule here of dosaging, for me anyways, is making sure we're getting anywhere from 2 to 2.5 grams of EPA DHA combined per day. So if you look on these fish oils, some of them say like 500 EPA and 250 DHEA. So that would only be 750 milligrams combined. If we're trying to get 2 grams or 2.5 grams, then like that's great, but I'm going to probably have my client taking 5 to 6 of those servings of fish oil just because it's a low dose. Does that make sense? A head nod helps, a thumbs up helps. Anybody? Does that make sense? Okay. So we want to make sure we're trying to get that 2.2 to 2.5. The company that I usually recommend is called Now Vitamins, and you can get on Amazon. They have an ultra omega that about 3 of those fish oil pills gives us the dosage that we want, and it's pretty cost effective, and it's a higher quality, so they don't like burp up the fish oil and taste fish. Just another point for your clients is if they go, oh, I hate fish oil because I burp it up and I taste it, it's probably just a shitty quality fish oil. And if they got a higher concentration of EPA, DHA, they probably wouldn't have those issues at all. So with the omegas, they're excessively anti-inflammatory. They support your hair, your skin, your nails, and even your heart health. And what's really cool about them is they've actually been linked to positive results in cognitive function in adults with Alzheimer's. It supports testosterone. I definitely messed up how I typed that. And it also supports testosterone production. So, and fats in general help support hormones and testosterone production, but omegas specifically do have a good support system for testosterone in the body, which everybody needs. Again, we don't make these naturally. We have to supplement them in our diet. This is one of my king supplements for every single person. I have yet in my years of coaching to come across an individual that I look at and go, man, they shouldn't be taking a fish oil. So I think that it's a staple, but also keep in mind, we've noted this on another call. I just want to make sure we note it again. The vitamins that are fat soluble need to be eaten with a meal. They need to be consumed with a meal. Otherwise, they're not bioavailable in the system. They need to be consumed with a fat source in order for your body to absorb them. And I think that the threshold for that absorption to happen is 6 grams of fat. I think that I feel like I remember reading that somewhere. Don't quote me on that, but I would say try to get a minimum of 6 fats in for the meal for that to happen. Okay. Vitamin E. Awesome supplement. This isn't one that I necessarily think is like crucial for a client's success or overall health, but we really can't knock the efficacy of this. It's a nutrient that's really important to vision, which is something that not a lot of people think of, but I'm very keen on keeping my eyesight good for my whole life. I don't know about y'all, but I think that's something that's super important, especially as we get into this day and age of coaching and everything we do is on phones and everything we do is on computers. Like if you can't see, you can't work in this day and age. So it helps with reproduction and the health of your blood, brain, and skin. It also has antioxidant properties. And if you guys remember our stress reduction video, vitamin E can actually help with adrenal health and like restoring the adrenals if they've been fatigued. So the dosage that I do for that is 800 milligrams a day of vitamin E. If we're going to do it to treat like adrenal or stress functions in a client, 800 milligrams a day is what I'm going to run. It's usually going to be about a 4 month process there before we start seeing those benefits build up. And then vitamin E topical. I don't know if anybody here has ever used like a vitamin E cream for like stretch marks or things on their body, but it is quite literally a miracle supplement. And I've used it personally on stretch marks, and they've like ceased to be visible. So vitamin E has a lot of properties that can be used topically as well. You guys are going to get a lot of fat loss or like weight loss clients, and sometimes stretch marks are a bit of a concern there. So if we can point them in the direction to start mitigating that cosmetically as well, it's just going to help them because they're not going to be stressed thinking about them, which is going to help them have more progress. Vitamins part 3, vitamin A. Vitamin A, I actually think is a very like undervalued, underlooked at supplement, especially for athletes. 700 to 900 micrograms a day seems to be a sweet spot, but is a super potent antioxidant that helps fight free radicals that come from oxidative stress. We don't want to get sick. So vitamin A is huge here. And it also aids in your bone health, which for athletes is super, super important. And it supports eye and vision health as well. The more that I research these to put these in the slide, the more I realize how many of these actually benefit your eyes, which is pretty cool. I didn't know that. And then like for athletes, they're going to need more vitamin A than Gen Pop just from the demand on their body. So if you guys have a sports specific athlete who is training and also who had that? Somebody had that. Somebody actually had an athlete who was weight training, and also it was John. Yeah. So you actually had that athlete. So that athlete is probably going to benefit quite a bit from supplementing with vitamin A in their diet. B12. So there's a whole array of B vitamins, and I think that they're all beneficial. I'm just going over B12 and B5. Okay. So B12 is like the king B vitamin, in my opinion. It's essential for health and normal function. It helps support energy metabolism, and I touch on energy metabolism more in the B5, but energy metabolism is so crucial for literally everything. It also helps with blood health. B5, pantothenic acid. If you guys remember in a call, I don't know if I went over this in the call. Have I gone over this using B5 for acne with clients? I think I have gone over this in the coaching collective. If not, we'll go over it again. But B5, super undervalued. It's necessary for making blood cells, and it helps convert food into energy. This is energy metabolism. So it's pretty much all B vitamins help convert food into energy, which is what energy metabolism is. So anything that we can do to support that process in the body's ability to take food, burn it off, and use it as energy is going to benefit the metabolism, and it's going to benefit your body's ability to like run like a well-oiled machine. Also, my use for acne. So I've used this for many years for athletes who are struggling with acne breakouts. I usually load B5 about 5,000 mgs a day for a week or two. I'd say 9 times out of 10, acne gets cleared up, but too much B5 will raise calcium. And if calcium is too high, if you ever see high calcium on blood work, we know there's going to be strain on the kidneys. And we want to make sure that we're not putting harsh stress on the kidneys. So it's just something to think about, especially when clients are eating like high calcium foods and stuff. Too much calcium can be very harsh on the kidneys. Any questions on this so far? Cool. Vitamins part 4. Last one here. Last one on the vitamins. Vitamin C. Dude, vitamin C is my dog. That's my man right there. That's my home dog. So vitamin C, I say anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 milligrams a day. Personally, I've had people dealing with adrenal fatigue dose upwards of 20,000 milligrams a day, and blood works completely fine. I'm planning on doing a full call here purely on adrenal fatigue and dysfunction and how to like remedy it. So we'll go into that more in that call. But when it comes to vitamin C, I always want you guys to make sure that you're getting vitamin C as absorbic acid. If it's not as absorbic acid, it's probably not real bioavailable vitamin C. Just waste of money. Okay. Vitamin C is nuts. Like, it's necessary for the growth, development, and repair of all body tissues. Like, think about that. All body tissues, vitamin C plays a role in the growth, development, and repair of them. This should be a supplement in all of our routines. All of our routines. It's involved in many body functions. It helps with the formation of collagen, the absorption of iron, the proper functioning of the immune system, wound healing, and the maintenance of cartilage, bones, and teeth, even adrenal function, which its ability, I hypothesize, its ability to aid in adrenal function is what allows it to help with wound healing. Because when your adrenals are functioning properly, your body's going to be able to heal and recover faster. If adrenals are fatigued, you're going to have your body's going to take a lot longer to heal from wounds. So that's an important one to know. We will go over that in the video as well. So with that, I think I wrote this for iron because iron's a mineral. But if we have an athlete who's supplementing with vitamin C and we get labs back and their iron is super high or their ferritin is super high, we're going to pull the vitamin C because we're holding on to iron too much. It's too much iron in the system. So we pull the vitamin C, body's not going to be absorbing as much iron. Does that make sense? Cool. Multivitamins / minerals.
Wait, can you go over what you just said about pulling the vitamin C?
Yeah, well, vitamin C just supports iron absorption. So if somebody's iron levels are too high, we don't want them absorbing iron as much because they have too much iron in their system. So if we pull vitamin C, their aid in absorbing iron isn't there anymore. Makes sense. So multivitamins and minerals, I'm honestly not a huge fan on these. I don't think that they're super necessary. They have their role if I see an athlete that's been extremely malnourished from like an eating disorder or like a very aggressive prep and labs are tanked. I may throw in a multivitamin and or a multi-mineral to help cover all bases here until food's back to a better spot. But I personally operate on if we have an athlete who's being realistic and responsible with their diet and eating quality foods, we don't need to be hitting every single angle with a multivitamin. It's kind of just like wasted, in my opinion. So they can be used. It's just not something I heavily rely on for my athletes. Doesn't mean that they can't be beneficial.
Does it make sense to use a multivitamin if you're taking any other vitamin?
Yeah. Here's the thing is multivitamins in general, they don't have like a crazy amount of everything. They just kind of have like a little bit of everything. So if somebody's on a multivitamin, we get labs back and they're super, super deficient in calcium, then we can throw calcium in there as well.
So is it just like a way to not, like if someone needs just vitamins in general, instead of just having them pick and choose, it kind of just throws all of them at you?
Well, so like I said, if somebody's like super, like if somebody has like an eating disorder or they're super malnourished or they've been under eating for like chronically for years and they come to me and they're super underweight, they're eating like 1,200 calories, have been for a year. It's like they're deficient in literally everything. So in that sense, I'll probably throw in a multivitamin and a multi-mineral until like their body gets re-nourished. Like we get food up, they start responding better, start feeling better, energy comes back, things like that. Minerals. Again, guys, just remember, like that's all we got for vitamins, but just remember, this is not an all-inclusive call. These are just the ones that I use foundationally off the top of my head. Iodine. Iodine is probably one of my favorite minerals. It's essential. Iodine is used by the thyroid gland to make thyroid hormones that control many functions in the body, including growth and development. Because your body does not produce iodine, it needs to be supplied in the diet. Going back to our call on superfoods, sea moss is like a pillar of iodine. Don't know why, but sea moss has a ton of iodine in it, but you can use iodized sea salt on your meals to get healthy levels of iodine in your body. So again, we've talked about this for supporting thyroid. We want to be supplementing with iodine in some way, shape, or form. I just want my athletes doing that anyways, because we don't produce iodine. So we want it coming in some way, shape, or form, just consistently. The more natural support we can give the thyroid without overloading it, just the better it's going to function overall. Right? Makes sense. Magnesium. Dope. Awesome supplement. And honestly, one of the most common nutrient deficiencies amongst athletes that I see. So I almost always throw this in and encourage use. It improves and supports your ability to enter the REM cycle of sleep. So, and we did touch on this in the circadian video, but when somebody's restless at night, they keep waking up, like, oh, I wake up at 3 a.m. and I'm wired. They're having a hard time getting into their REM sleep. Restlessness almost always stems from a magnesium deficiency. I'll say almost always because stress, life, things like that will definitely play a role. But if somebody's restless during the night, usually it's a magnesium deficiency. So I'll go anywhere from 400 to 600 milligrams about 30 minutes before bed to see if that improves it. Usually it does. On top of that, majority of cramping issues actually stem from a magnesium deficiency, not a potassium deficiency. That's just kind of like one of those old sayings, like those bro science things, like, oh, I'm cramping. And they're like, dude, eat a banana, right? You guys have heard that pretty much always. While there is some validity to that because an electrolyte imbalance can cause muscles to cramp, majority of the time, it's actually a magnesium deficiency, I've found. Minerals part 2, zinc. Zinc's a powerful son of a bitch. I'll dose it anywhere from 500 to 100 megs a day. You can dose too much of this. Most effectively taken 1 hour before your meals. I think also 2 hours after your meals. Those are like the windows. It's something weird like that. I usually do an hour before meals, but I think there's also if you take it 2 hours after your meal, it's supposed to be like the most optimal time to take it. But I do an hour before meals. Zinc does a lot. It reduces inflammation, boosts your immune health, supports wound healing, improves acne, reduces risk of pretty much all age-related diseases tenfold. But it seems to have some sort of reaction in the body if somebody has Crohn's disease. And I've cross-referenced this with some research because I had 2 clients that had Crohn's and they used zinc and they got fucked up from it. My own mistake. Don't take my mistake. So apparently if somebody has Crohn's, zinc does something. I'm not sure exactly what the reaction is in the gut, but it's not fun for them. But zinc is something that I will use pretty hard anytime an athlete is sick. And you guys can use this for your own peeps. I have like a COVID supplement protocol, which basically I'm having them go 100 mgs of zinc. I'm having them throw in quercetin, and then I'm having them do vitamin D plus K2. And I'll usually try to have them load like 10,000 IUs of the vitamin D and wherever the K2 lands. So those 3 vitamins, vitamins, minerals, I'm having them on to support their body's healing when they're with COVID. That seems to be the power pack thing right now.
Can you repeat that one more time? Your COVID.
Yeah. Zinc, quercetin is QUERCETIN, I think. Quercetin. And then vitamin D plus K2. Just honorable mentions for minerals is potassium and sodium. We've covered these in past calls, so I'm not going to deep dive on them again. We obviously know that they're crucial for electrolyte balance and a lot of processes in the body, from muscle contractions to urination, everything like that. So they are minerals, but they play crucial roles in electrolyte balance. They are important. The other one that plays a role in electrolyte balance is calcium. Calcium is a mineral your body needs to build and maintain strong bones and to carry out like a ton of functions, like a ton. Calcium is actually the highest concentrated mineral in the body, which means we have the most amount of it in the body. And almost all calcium in your body is stored in your bones and your teeth, which gives them structure and hardness. It's the calcification, right, of your bones that makes them hard. It's not actually the bones themselves. It's the calcium deposit or the calcium buildup in them. Does that make sense? So that's why they constantly absorb calcium. If we stop absorbing calcium, the bones lose their shape. Your teeth can start to break, things like that. So important to make sure that we're getting enough calcium, but not too much calcium to where it's harshing the kidneys. Iron. Kind of going to tie this back to the vitamin C, remember? But iron helps to preserve many vital functions in the body, including your general energy and focus, your GI function, the immune system, and the regulation of your body temperature. And you'll see the energy and focus is the one that I see affected the most by iron. I actually have a client right now who she was just tanked energy. She's like, I don't understand. I'm completely fine. I went and got blood work done, and she has like no iron in her body whatsoever. And she's like she has to take like naps. She's been having to take naps throughout the day. She can't focus on anything. So iron deficiencies really will tank your energy and focus really, really hard. So if a client's feeling like that randomly, it might be a good idea to get blood work done and see what iron's at. It can be definitely a thing. And then the flip side of this is vitamin C improves iron absorption. So if a client does have too high, we need to pull it. But if a client has too low of iron, well, it would make sense to supplement iron with the vitamin C so that they're having that absorption. Does that make sense? Works both sides there. Chloride isn't one that I think needs to be like worried about. I just think it's a really cool one to touch on because it is in foods and like green drinks and stuff. Chloride is one of the most important electrolytes in the body. It helps keep the amount of fluid inside and outside of your cells in balance. So intracellular and intramuscular, right? This chloride will help regulate those and balance them. It also helps maintain proper blood volume, blood pressure, and the pH of your body fluids. So like chloride's pretty fucking cool. But if your clients are eating a balanced diet, you're going to get a decent amount of chloride. Chloride deficiencies aren't something that I see very often at all. Bless you, Brittany. Okay. So any questions on those minerals right there? Those are the 6 that I wanted to cover, or the 8.
How would you supplement iron? Like, do you have like a certain dosage, or you would just tell them to eat more foods with iron?
So you can pop in an iron supplement all you want. It's really going to depend on like what their labs look like, but you can start them at like 50 mgs of iron a day and see how they feel. And then you compare that with like, 1 to 2,000 mgs of vitamin C. I usually will start on the lower end because the goal with any sort of supplementation ever is to use the least to get the most. Yeah, like where is that lower threshold we can get to get the result that we want, and then let's just stay there.
Have you ever had a client that you've had to put on iron and then they start having like constipation issues? And if so, how about that?
No, I actually have never experienced that. It might be a thing for some people. I've never really gone into that, but I would say if that's happening, then the iron levels are probably just too high too fast. Yeah. So if you start them at like 100 mgs and they have GI issues, then you can potentially pull it down to 50 and see if it improves. But it would have to be like that's the only thing that changed, because if they start supplementing with iron, but then they also start eating like a ton of broccoli because broccoli is high in iron, and they go, oh, I'm bloated and I can't go to the bathroom. It's probably not the iron supplementation. It's probably their response to broccoli or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. After I had Sage, I was borderline anemic, so they put me on iron tablets, and that was one of like the biggest issues that I had, was it threw my digestion off.
Really? Do you remember what dosage you were at?
No, that was 9 years ago. I don't know.
So my bet was that it was probably too high, too fast, and body was just having a hard time balancing out. Whereas realistically, we could probably start lower, utilize vitamin C with it so that you're not having to overload iron.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for asking your question. Going into supplements. Pre-workouts. These are the supplements that like every client uses that I wanted to dive into. Like every client uses pre-workout and every client uses protein. So we'll dive into it. These are just like what I look for pre-workouts for me to like approve them, so to speak. So I really prefer caffeine from my clients under 200 mgs a day. So if I see a pre-workout with 200 mgs, I'm like, all right, well, like that's all the caffeine I want you having for the day. I'd prefer a half scoop. Like I prefer like 150 mgs in their pre-workout. What I also look for, couple ingredients that are just going to give you the most bang for your buck for everything, is L-tyrosine, L-citrulline, beta-alanine, taurine. And then I typically enjoy to see a pre-workout that has some sort of sodium potassium blend in there to help with blood vessel dilation and blood flow. Any sort of nitric oxide amplifier is obviously going to be a plus as well. But these are just kind of like those couple things that I look for. Anything over these, like there's some pre-workouts that have like 300 milligrams of caffeine, and then they have like a crazy nitric oxide blend. So if you guys remember, I think we went over this in another call, but caffeine is a vasorestrictor. So it contracts and constricts your blood vessels, whereas nitric oxide is a vasodilator. So you have when people have pre-workouts that are like 300 milligrams, 400 milligrams of caffeine, and they have nitric oxide properties in them, you have a massive force trying to do this and a massive force trying to do this at the same time. There's no synergy there. There's no synergy. You have two things going in trying to do completely different things. Not really my preferred for my athletes to go into the gym doing something like that. Okay. Protein. Oh, wait, sorry. One thing is just remember to be wary of artificial and certain ingredients in anything, the pre-workouts, the proteins, anything. Remember we talked about in the last call, like things like citric acid are actually a derivative of black mold. Not that that's necessarily inherently bad if we don't have a mold intolerance, but if you have a client who is like, oh man, my stomach is always super bloated. Okay, let's look at your pre-workout. Let's look at your protein. Let's see what types of supplements that you're taking on top of that. If their diet's good, let's look at the supplements. Usually you're going to find something there. So for protein, same standard of quality ingredients. I prefer a GMP certification on the powders. And so the FDA doesn't regulate supplements because they're not technically a food, right? So there's a lot of fuck shit that happens in the supplement industry. A GMP certification is essentially the FDA approval of the supplement realm. So a supplement company kind of has to go above and beyond what they're doing to get that GMP certification. So that's something that I really, especially for protein powders, that's something that I'm looking for. If it's GMP certified, it's NK certified. So for the protein parameters, and this is if I'm just looking for like a quality protein. Meal replacements are different. 25 grams of protein or more is like what I like to see. Low carb, low fat, isolated whey. And if you guys saw on the Slack channel, we actually had somebody ask about a client. Anybody see this today? The client who was taking protein powder ended up seeing blood in her urine, stopped with the protein powder. The blood in her urine stopped, started to drinking the protein again, blood in the urine started again. So, and they're like, oh, it's protein powder. No, it's not protein powder. It's more than likely a ingredient in a specific brand of protein powder that is reacting very, very wrong in her body that's causing her to do that. So going off of these standards for your protein, I'm going to assume we can eliminate this. Not to like drop names, but it was Bomar protein. And I do have people who have like issues digesting that protein. I think it's a great company. It doesn't have any issues with me, but I do find a lot of people have issues digesting Bomar products. So it's probably some product ingredient that they're using that's causing those things. So instead of just saying, man, I can't eat protein anymore, I can't use protein anymore, figuring out what is in that protein that's causing that, and then removing it and finding a different solution. So isolated wheys, hydrolyzed wheys, those are going to be like the most clean cut proteins. And then obviously going vegan if they have dairy intolerances and things like that. Questions on protein or pre-workout?
Is New Ethics GMP certified?
I actually don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I don't use their protein. I don't use any protein personally. I don't know. Actually, I'm gonna have to check that. Moving on. Glucose disposal agents or berberine. More oftentimes than not, glucose disposal agents have berberine in them. The GDAs will usually have like other supporting ingredients in them to help, but if finance is pending for a client, they can go on Amazon and just pick up berberine straight, do like 500 mgs with their meals in replacement of that GDA, and it'll probably help us. So glucose disposal agents, they're going to help partition nutrients. They're going to maintain and it's supposed to say reset insulin sensitivity, not rest insulin sensitivity. With this, we'll boost immunity, reduce inflammation, and you're going to get better pumps and more vascularity. I'm a huge fan of glucose disposal agents. A lot of people go, oh, they don't work. And we've talked about this in other videos with like correcting people's blood work and insulin levels and blood glucose levels. GDAs are going to help your body's ability to partition those nutrients and then reset your insulin sensitivity. That's our goal there with the GDAs. Not something that you need long-term, but something that can ebb and flow as a supplement as needed, for sure. Chromium for insulin sensitivity can be used as well. I just wanted to add that in there. GDA Max from New Ethics uses both chromium and berberine in their GDA Max. And personally, I think GDA Max is one of the better GDAs that I've seen on the market. Morphogen Nutrition also has a great glucose disposal agent as well. Those are probably my top two that I've seen. But again, if it's like a finance pending thing for a client and like we're really having a hard time getting fasted insulin low and blood glucose in range, they can probably buy berberine and chromium freestanding for a little bit cheaper and just dose them with themselves. Greens drinks, green supplements, the first form craze that's sweeping Instagram still. The first form greens. I don't think that those are still a thing anymore, but that was like all you saw everyone on Instagram was, oh my God, these greens are the best ever. They're fixing my digestion. I can't go to the bathroom without them. If I don't have them, I'm going to die. No, that is not like a lot of people use greens drinks as a means to regulate their digestion. And that is just no good. Like that's not okay. That's not what we want to do. We should never, this is important. We should never, ever, ever need to constantly supplement with something in order to regulate our bathroom cycle. That is not what we should be doing. So when your client goes, well, I ran out of my greens and now I can't go to the bathroom, there's a deeper issue that needs to be worked on. So what green supplements should be seen for is their antioxidants, their health enzymes, the detoxification support from the dark leafy greens, the exposure to fruits, veggies, and superfoods, and also a little bit of fiber for their diet. That's what we want to be using the green supplement for. We have those weird clients that are like, I hate vegetables. I don't want to eat vegetables. Anybody have any of those? They're like, oh, I hate vegetables. I don't eat vegetables. They make me gag. First of all, what are you talking about? Grow up. Grow up before anything else. But if they're not going to eat them, okay, we can't force them. This is where a greens drink can come in play because they're at least going to be getting exposure to fruits, veggies, superfoods, healthy enzymes, help with the detoxification support. More oftentimes than not, the clients that's not eating vegetables is having a really hard time with progress, especially females, because they're not aiding in the detoxification process of estrogen in their system. Questions? Pretty straightforward.
So what if someone doesn't eat fruits? Is there another, the greens supply that or no?
Well, yeah. So you're going to get exposure to fruits and veggies in majority of greens. Some greens, they call them like reds blends. They have a greens blend and a reds blend for fruits and veggies and stuff. But dude, for real, if we have clients who are like, dude, I don't eat fruits, like that's where I kind of draw the line. I'm like, no, you need to find a fruit and pick it. Like pick a fruit.
He has trauma. He said his babysitter like force fed him fruits as a baby and he like throws up whenever he eats. And he's like, I couldn't break him on it. So is there like a certain company you recommend for greens? I'm still trying to wrap my head around that conversation. Yeah, it's like blueberries, like strawberries, nothing. Like it's literally nothing. Nothing.
I recommend. I mean, therapy maybe first. That's weird. I've never heard of that. Dude, honestly, New Ethics has a great greens drink. Again, Morphogen has a great greens drink. And like, dude, realistically, Morphogen and New Ethics are probably the two companies that I trust the most in this industry. I know Jason and Ben both personally, and they are just both fucking awesome human beings who genuinely want to help people. And I really, really like align with their messages. But Raw and Revive are also good companies, but they're pretty overpriced in my opinion for what they are. So
the Morphogen one also tastes really good.
Does it?
Yeah.
I haven't had it. What's the flavor?
They have 3.
Oh, geez.
There's like a blueberry acai, a cranberry apple, and then a pineapple one.
Oh, nice.
We're all good at all of them.
Yeah. Well, it's always a plus when they taste good, for real. Oh, and then I got my apple pie greens. Plug.
Oh, yeah, that was best too.
All right, moving on. So these are a little bit more this slide's a little bit more tailored toward like women clients, which majority of us are going to be coaching. Chaseberry, we've talked about this multiple times, but I do think it's important to just put it in our bank of supplements to use for females. So this is used, remember this is used to initiate the signal from brain to ovaries to produce progesterone. It does not produce progesterone on its own. It just is allowing the signal to happen for the brain to tell the ovaries to produce. It's not a bioidentical form of progesterone. If, like, chasteberry will always be my first line of defense for low progesterone, especially if somebody's younger. Now, if somebody's like 35, 40, their progesterone's tanked, it's been down for a while, then I'll probably just go straight to Progon. But if they're any younger than that, I'm going to try to just allow that brain signal to happen first and see if we can't get it back on. So with the Bezwecken Progon B, this is a bioidentical form of progesterone. This is what I call my second line of attack because it's more intense for progesterone. Typically, this is a topical. You rub it into your legs 2 times a day. That would be like phase 1. Phase 2, and typically if chasteberry just didn't work, I'll go to doing like 10 drops of the Bezwecken under your tongue. 10 drops is about 40 milligrams of progesterone. I know like this Bezwecken, it says like, don't eat it. Like it's not edible or whatever it says, but it is, it totally is. 10 drops are only 40 milligrams. The typical floor from an HRT clinic is 100 milligrams. Like if they're gonna treat somebody for low progesterone, they're usually gonna go 100 milligrams. So it's still low in that sense, but it's also giving you that bioidentical form. And more oftentimes than not, we're gonna see progesterone come back online for that. If not, then HRT is gonna be what needs to happen. I believe, not necessarily Bible. Any questions on those two? We've covered those a decent amount in these calls. Okay, cool. So next up, it literally has absolutely nothing to do with chasteberry or Progon, but ashwagandha. And just not touching on, I'm not going over like any nootropics here or nootropics just because we just did that call. But ashwagandha is an adaptogen that it's probably one of my power packed supplements, which is why it's here. It's an adaptogen that helps calm the brain, reduce swelling, lower blood pressure, and improve the immune system. And in my opinion, the reason that all of those other things happen is because of its number one use, calming the brain. Because when you're stressed out, you have more swelling, you have high blood pressure, and then your immune system tanks from stress. So the studies say that it helps all of those. I think that by calming the brain, everything else happens as a byproduct. Adaptogens help the body resist physical and mental stress. So anytime we have a client who's stressful day at work or, having just going through it, ashwagandha is something that we can throw in 1 to 2 to 3 times a day and just helping their body resist succumbing to that stress and then having issues. So it can also be a preventative as well than just like a recovery, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? It can do both. It does both. Supplements part 4. I actually think this is the last slide. No, it's not. DIM, D-I-M. DIM is a freestanding for me. Yes, it's in Estricort from New Ethics, but DIM is a freestanding for me because it supports estrogen balance. Because remember, we've talked about this. There's 3 estrogen pathways with methylation. There's 2-OH, 4-OH, and 16-OH. DIM supports estrogen balance by increasing the 2-OH estrogens. 2-OH is where we dominantly want to see the pathway happening. We won't see this unless we're on a Dutch test with people. We'll get to that in a second. So it reduces the unwanted 16-OH. And I don't agree with this because 16-OH, in my opinion, is a little bit more. If you guys saw my story today, I actually talked about this on a Dutch test. 16-OH is kind of like middle ground, but 4-OH is the one that we don't want very high at all. 4-OH is where like breast cancer and things like that, like estrogen-driven diseases happen from. But DIM will shift 16-OH and 4-OH into 2-OH pathway, which improves estrogen metabolism and usually helps resolve estrogen dominance. So Estricort has other very, very lucrative supporting ingredients with it, which is why I usually will go through that when I have somebody with estrogen dominance. But DIM as a freestanding, and I can actually use this example I have a client who she is biasing 16-OH heavier, but her estradiol on her labs is like less than 5. So she has no estrogen at all, but she's also biasing a pathway that we don't want her to bias. So instead of going full hard in like the reduction of estrogen with Estracort, we're just starting her on 200 milligrams of DIM to start getting that pathway shifted over. That makes sense. Next up, we have saw palmetto. This is multifactorial use, women and men. Saw palmetto is going to be used to lower 5-alpha reductase activity or like reduce high androgens in the system. So if we go on blood work and we see somebody's free test is too high, free test, not total test. Free test is where we see 5-alpha reductase and higher androgen like side effects. So acne, oily skin, oily hair, or thinning hair. If virilization of the vocal cords, if free test is too high, then we're going to start seeing those types of effects. So saw palmetto will help lower and pull down the free testosterone in the system so that they're more in range. Yeah. And with that, or like not with that, but the flip side of that, boron is an awesome supplement and it helps balance sex hormones. And it can also help relieve, did I spell that right? I did spell that right. It can also help relieve menopause symptoms and PMS. Now, I'm not just going to throw somebody on boron because they have cramps, right? We're going to go a little bit deeper to solve those issues in the first place, but it can relieve them. And then boron actually helps us with SHBG. So if SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin, is too high, boron can reduce that, which in itself will help free test if free test is super low. Because remember, estrogen and testosterone are sex hormones. So if sex hormone binding globulin is high, it's going to be binding to all the tests and estrogen. So those will be lower. Does that make sense? With the binding. Yeah. So boron can help us kind of balance that stuff out and help support the free test. Supplements part 5. 99% sure this is the last slide. Yeah, it is. Or the last supplement overview. So creatine monohydrate. Everybody uses this. And if your athletes aren't using this, truthfully, they should be using it. 5 milligrams a day. And I'll argue 10 mgs if we have a male who's heavier, more muscle, but 5 milligrams a day is truthfully all anybody needs. Creatine does not need a loading phase. It works off of a saturation point. It doesn't work off of, oh, I've got 20 milligrams in my system and now I'm going to absorb it better. No, creatine is saturation. It just takes a little bit of time to load up in your system. And that's it. There's nothing else that needs to be like focused on with that. There's no intracellular water retention, only intramuscular water retention, which is what we want. So when your clients go, oh, I started taking creatine, I'm retaining a bunch of water, I don't like it. Like, no, it's not creatine. It's not what it does. It's not even its function. Your muscles are 75, might be more than that, % water. So when we can have a supplement that's going to help us pull more water into the muscle bellies, we're going to have fuller, harder, leaner looking muscle. It replenishes ATP stores in your muscle tissue. So think about this as like extra gas reserve for your tank in your car. When we make contractions, we're constantly getting rid of adenosine triphosphate, ATP. So creatine is helping us kind of synthetically, I guess, have more of that. So you'll be able to do a couple more reps, basically, like to paint it in layman's terms, like it'll help you do a couple more reps before your muscle fully fatigues. EAAs. I did not put BCAAs here because I don't believe in BCAAs. I think they're a waste of money. I really do. EAAs, essential amino acids. It has all 9 essential amino acids in it. BCAAs only have 3, leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Complete protein here. If it has all 9 essential amino acids, it is a complete protein source. So I will use this if an athlete is deep in prep, really aggressive in a deficit, has been malnourished and under eating from an eating disorder. So think about this, back to the multivitamin and multimineral, we can do both of those plus EAAs if they've been super malnourished for a very long time to help supplement them while they recover. If they're vegetarian or vegan, then I'll throw in EAAs 1 to 2 scoops a day so that they are getting some form of complete protein throughout their day. It's necessary. They're the building blocks of protein. We need them. And then betaine. Betaine is pretty dope. And this is more of like a digestive support than anything. When you're supplementing with betaine, you always want to take it mid-meal or post-meal. Otherwise, it can kind of mess up the digestion process with that meal. So I'll use this if an athlete has issues with digesting protein or we need to improve stomach acid balance. And it's also shown to increase testosterone, which is just a cool little nugget from it as well. So if we have somebody who's constantly bloating, I see this a lot after competition prep clients, like post-prep or just post-aggressive dieting phase, people's systems are a lot more sensitive and they need to be handled with a lot more care. And if they go too hard and they start eating too much shit, then their digestion gets messed up. And then they have a hard time. Protein's hard to digest in general. So if stomach acid is off, I'll throw in betaine with each of their larger protein meals for a couple of weeks until things improve. Usually it does. I operate very strongly from the stance that vitamins and supplements should be utilized on an as needed protocol and not just a kitchen sink response, which means we just throw everything at somebody at once. Different situations call for heavier supplement protocols until issues resolve, but the goal should be for our clients to be needing as little supplementation as possible. And I will be referencing the last call we did, the overall health and well-being call, multiple times when it comes to things like this. I believe if you focus on our last call first, then the need for a majority of support supplements will not be a need at all. These are the foundation vitamins, minerals, and supplements that I use for my athletes. I really don't think much more is truly needed ever unless it's like a case-specific need. So for the general athlete, the general client, I don't think that there's many other things that are necessarily needed. You'll notice I left out probiotic because I don't think that probiotics are needed from people if we're eating quality foods and we're taking care of everything else. They have their place, but I don't consider them a staple. This presentation is not all-inclusive of beneficial supplements used for your clients. There will always be necessary multifactorial approaches for our athletes based off of their situations. That's why we have the Slack channel. Questions, comments, other vitamins or subs that you want to add or touch on?
So I have two questions. For the vitamin D, how do you know how much to give somebody, whether it's 1,000 or 10,000?
I'm usually a middle of the road guy when I start with vitamin D. I'll start with 5,000. I usually start everybody on 5,000. So like I said, 99.99% of people don't get enough sun. And we have a hard time absorbing vitamin D in general. So I'll usually always start it with 5,000 mgs, and then I'll just kind of monitor from there. Usually we'll get lab work between there. If vitamin D levels are still like lower end or just mid-range, I'll bump it to 10. More often times than not, like vitamin D has a crucial role in energy production and serotonin production. So you bump up vitamin D, people usually feel better, have higher moods, higher everything. So that's my more practical or like reason use for vitamin D, along with everything else that comes with different benefits. Cool.
And for the creatine as well, does it affect women any differently? Like I know I was in a class once where they had said that especially monohydrate for women could cause more bloating, but you said it doesn't. So I'm kind of wanting to clear that up.
Personally, in my multiple, like almost a decade now in this game of coaching and competitors and females and males and everything, I have never seen like a female respond worse to creatine monohydrate than a male. I've never seen it happen. I'm not saying that it can't happen. You know, some people can just have certain responses genetically to certain supplements. Like it happens. But I've personally, on all the clients I've coached, never seen a female have a negative reaction to creatine monohydrate.
And so in monohydrate versus micronized, what's like the difference there? Why is monohydrate better than micronized?
Well, micronized is just a marketing scheme and it's bullshit. Truthfully, creatine monohydrate is literally like the number one most researched supplement that we have. And anything outside of that, in my opinion, is just a waste. And if you look at it, like micronized creatine is like 4 or 5 times the price of creatine monohydrate. Because you can go on Amazon, you can get 1,000 servings of creatine monohydrate for like $12. creatine monohydrate is naturally occurring in foods that we eat, like chicken, steak, stuff like that. So it's just like we're getting it a more higher dose supplement consistently. All that other stuff is just smoke and mirrors for the supplement industry and the fitness industry to make money, in my opinion. Anybody else have any questions? Cool. You guys are dope. Thanks for always showing up. Much love. I'm gonna go.